Hello, everyone. It's Steve with Aptera Owners Club. There was a video put out by This Week in Startups a couple of weeks ago, and it is a interview with um, Comma AI's Chief Technology Officer, Harold Schaefer, or Schaffer. I don't know how to say his last name, but this guy is so chill and so matter of the fact. And I thought it was a great interview, and I just wanted to highlight because openpilot is what Aptera is going to use for their kind of driver assistance program. And several of you guys have used openpilot and Comma AI, and you guys know how good it is. Chris M used to work for Comma AI, and he's very familiar with it. He has a Comma AI device on his personal vehicle, and he uses it to commute back and forth from work. But this guy was talking in this video about what he feels like the advantages of OpenAI are, and I thought I would go over a few excerpts that I thought were the most interesting and share them with you guys. But I think that the whole interview is about 45 minutes. It is well worth your time if you're interested in OpenPilot and autonomous driving and someone's thoughts on the way that the industry is moving in this area. All right. So first excerpt is about why Comma AI is using open source and why he thinks that open source is better. And I think this kind of ties into that, like, open source is transparency, and Aptera is also about transparency. And Aptera is, in a way, somewhat of an open source hardware manufacturer in that they are right to repair. They're going to give you the schematics. They're sharing with us their process of how they're developing the vehicle, that kind of stuff.
So just to start off with, I mean, I have dozens of great things to say about open source, but I think the biggest thing it does for us is it keeps us honest and it prevents us from being able to rent seek. If we make hardware that's quite overpriced or worse than a previous version, someone can just come in, undercut us, and run openpilot. If we make changes to the software that makes it just the shitty experience, like we can run ads while you're stationary, stuff like that, people will run a fork and they'll make changes to undo the things that we did. So it really forces us to make a good product, both in software and in hardware. So that's, I think, the biggest thing that's good about open source for that. And then, are there a lot of people contributing? So because we support so many different cars, it is useful for the community to be able to port new cars, to port their own car. There's definitely a lot of contribution there. When it comes to like improving the core driving experience, it's not really feasible for external people to contribute there. It's mostly for this like kind of small stuff. Some people make forks that have kind of different UIs or small changes that can kind of inspire us to look at maybe something we can change or changes we can take over.
Talk to me about the approach.
Okay, and then this next part is he's talking about the differences between Waymo and Tesla and openpilot. And specifically, he's talking about lidar, I think.
Have pigeonholed themselves in this lidar sensor strategy. They don't seem to have any interest in moving away from lidar, which I think is a mistake. The world is made for eyes.
Yeah.
The arguments they often use is that, it's like more redundancy. It gives you information about the world that cameras could never do. But, ultimately the roads are designed for human eyes, and good modern cameras can do everything human eyes can do, if not more. And so there's absolutely no reason you can't perfectly drive a car, at least safer than most humans, with cameras. It is all a software machine learning problem. And I think using things like lidars gives you short-term gains, but are long-term, essentially bottlenecks. So I think it's a detour. I think they'll regret that.
So, I mean, I don't know that I personally agree with him or not, but of course, I'm a total amateur. I know nothing about this space. It just seems like if you're using just cameras only, then like we can use vision only because humans have a deep understanding of the world, of how it works. Like when we see a shopping bag go across, we know that's a shopping bag, and we know we don't have to swerve for that. And we know that, certain things, like we understand what things are and therefore how to deal with it. Whereas I don't know that a vision system is going to be able to tell the difference and have the deep understanding of the world to know how to interact with it. But maybe I'm wrong. The lidar actually helps with those kinds of things and helps with some redundancy. So I mean, I feel like driving is one of these things that like you have to be 100% right, because if you make a mistake once, people die, and so you need to have it has to work all the time. Um, but anyways, that's his thoughts on that. And then talking about rear facing cameras, which the Comma AI device does not have a rear facing camera other than the small camera that faces the cabin. Um, and I would think that having a rear facing camera would be very useful. Now, Aptera has rear facing cameras. It has multiple rear facing cameras. It has two in the center, a far and a short one for helping with parking. And then it has two on the sides where the side view mirrors would be. So I don't know if Comma AI at some point wants to make a fork to utilize that information, but it does seem like they're not interested at this point in utilizing that information.
Can let you drive a car pretty well if a competent human was operating behind the wheel with that camera view. There are some things that more cameras will help you with. And for a company like Tesla, I think it completely makes sense to install those cameras. For a company like us, the added hassle of installing more cameras around the car is never going to give the upgrade in performance to make that
How many
worth
do
it.
you use when you do it? Just the front facing one, or?
So we have two cameras facing the, actually I have a device here that I can show you
Yeah.
maybe. So this is the device here. And so we've got a narrow camera and a wide camera to the front. So it's 180 degrees and 40 degrees. And then on the other side, we have a driver facing camera that makes sure that you're paying attention. So 3 cameras total.
And what about like on the sides of the vehicle and the reverse cameras? Those could help with changing lanes, et cetera. So how do you think about lane changing and the next version of your software and hardware?
So our device has, with the two 180-degree lenses, has 360 degrees. So you can see the blind spots. But currently, the lane changes are supervised. So you initiate the lane change. You're expected to check the blind spot. And most cars that we support have a blind spot sensor that we can also look at. And so when there's a car in your blind spot detected by the blind spot radar, it will prevent the lane change.
That's an interesting question that maybe Aptera could answer for us is, will Aptera have a blind spot sensor? Because openpilot, Comma AI does utilize the information from the blind spot sensor. So if they have a blind spot sensor, that would be helpful to make openpilot work better, a little better.
But it is a supervisor expected to look as well.
Listen, a strong.
Okay, the last clip I have is he asked them, how come car manufacturers don't just take openpilot and install it on their vehicles? Now, if Aptera was on Comma AR's radar, I would have expected that Harold would say, there is this manufacturer, a startup called Aptera, and they are doing exactly that. He does not do that. So I suspect Aptera is like not even on their radar, or at least it's not on the radar of their chief technology officer. Maybe it's on the radar of someone in Comma AI, but it's not on his radar.
And then as to why these legacy car manufacturers don't take our system and just implement it and ship it because it's a lot better than theirs, I mean, that I think is a great question, but it's a question for them. I think generally speaking, these companies are not interested in innovation. They run defensively and they act out of fear. If they see that their business model is under threat, they will respond and try to reduce that threat. But when there is a system that is a clear upgrade to them available, that doesn't seem like an immediate threat, they just generally have no interest. I mean, it's the same thing with their infotainment systems. You use infotainment system of even a modern car from a legacy car manufacturer, and it feels broken compared to your iPhone. There's no excuse for that. They could fix that, but that's just not how these companies work. I think the bigger question is, why does companies like Lucid or Rivian perhaps not? They're developing their own system in-house. They have hardware that can run openpilot, and they're shipping solutions that are worse than openpilot. I think they'd be a great candidate to implement openpilot on their car, at least while they're developing their own solution. If they can make something better, sure, replace it. But in the meantime, why not just use our software? It's free, it's MIT licensed. They can get something better running today.
Yeah, it would seem to me that if.
So, yeah, he does not mention Aptera, which I think this would have been a perfect position for them to mention Aptera, which makes me think that Aptera is just not even on their radar. Because Aptera is not coming out with a product. I'm sure once Aptera has a product on the market, then maybe we will hit the radar of of comma AI. But anyways, I think the whole 45-minute interview is great, and I encourage you guys to check it out. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.